not this lecture, but maybe next lecture. Okay, so the conceptual framework that I want you to have in mind here is what we call the flat of curve graph. And what this basically just says is that there are diminishing marginal returns to healthcare spending. That's probably true of almost anything you think of. There's always going to be diminishing marginal returns. But if you want to see it graphically, what it's going to look like is just that there's a concave function that relates dollars of health expenditures and then what we'll call total health, which is going to be some measure of health. And so what you get is a relationship that looks sort of like this, in the sense that there's a high return to the initial dollars you spend, but that as you spend more and more money, you face decreasing returns. And you might even sort of be out at a point where there's almost no return. So this is why we say, this is why we call it the flat of curve, because the idea is that maybe we're out sort of in this region where we're spending a lot of money and the marginal return isn't very high, even if the average return is still pretty high. So remember, you can always calculate the average return. So the marginal return is going to be the slope of the curve at any given point. So like it would be high up here, and then it would sort of be in between over here, and then it would be very low out there. And then the average return is going to be given by the slope of the line that connects the origin with whichever point you're trying to calculate what the average return would be at. So if you had it up to there, then the average return would be the slope of this line. And so what you can see is that if you just calculated the average return, you would say, oh, that's not too bad. Like, it's definitely still got a positive slope there. But if you calculate the marginal return, it's going to be much lower out there. So this again is, this is going to be something that we're going to come back to repeatedly. But because of this, often what we see is that variations in expenditures across regions don't result in corresponding changes in life expectancy or in health stats. So the idea is that a lot of the variations we might see between, say, different areas of the country or even different countries might be kind of a variation between spending like this amount up here versus, say, this amount over there. And you can see that the difference in total health between those 2 points is not very large, even though the spending difference is not trivial. So there's a vast range of expenditures across countries and regions, and with, it turns out, relatively little difference in life expectancy. And you can see that actually from the last lecture when we just talked about the differences in per capita spending between different countries. And I said that despite these large differences, there isn't actually a very large difference in life expectancies or other measures of health, like infant mortality and so forth. There's also, so there's an article that, there's a bunch of articles I'll refer to that aren't in the reading, because I don't want to have like a million articles in the reading. But so one of them is this article by Goodman, which shows that there's large variation in expenditures in neonatologists per capita has basically no relationship with infant mortality above a low cutoff. So the idea here is that we now have sort of very expensive and intensive ways to try to save babies who are born below the optimal birth weight. And so it's possible to spend a lot of money on trying to reduce infant mortality. And it turns out that across regions, there's actually sort of different average levels of spending. So some regions of the country have sort of very high levels of expenditures on neonatologists per person or per infant born, and other areas have relatively low levels. And it turns out that none of this really actually correlates with infant mortality once you get above a relatively low cutoff. So if you're talking about very low levels of spending versus just somewhat low levels of spending, then the areas that have some of those levels of spending do better in terms of infant mortality than the very low level areas. But once you get above that cutoff, there's basically no relationship at all. So that's just sort of one of that's an example of like many of these stylized facts that suggest there isn't really a very strong relationship between expenditures and outcomes. So the best evidence that we have on this, unfortunately, dates back a few decades, and it's known as the Rand Health Insurance Experiment. So what they did is they actually randomly assigned different levels of health insurance to different people. So I say that, like, in a lot of cases, or in most cases in social science, you can't necessarily run a randomized experiment where you randomly assign some sort of program or policy to people, even though in terms of scientifically, we would think that would be the best way to actually measure the effect of the program or the policy. But what Rand did was they actually ran the randomized experiment where they said, we're going to offer more generous health insurance to some people and less generous health insurance to other people, randomly assign which people get it, and then we're going to see what happens both to their total spending and to their health outcomes. So they randomly assigned patients to different insurance plans. Again, this is the gold standard of evidence here. There are basically 4 different plans that they had here. So one was like the best plan, which is just free care. Anything you want, you can get it. You pay no copayment. There's in none of these cases were you necessarily paying premium. So you're always getting some sort of health insurance. The question is just how good it was. So that's like what you think is going to be the highest spending plan. Indeed it was. Then the next level, which was somewhat less generous, was that there was going to be an individual deductible for annual expenditures. So the deductible is set at $150. So what that means is that up until the point at which you've spent $150, you have to pay out of pocket. And then once you spend $150, you don't have to pay out of pocket anymore. So it's just like car insurance deductible or something of say $300 or $500 means that if you have an accident, then you have to pay the first $300 worth of damage, and then after that, the insurer covers it. Right now, $150, you're like, Jesus, that sounds really low. I mean. And it is, but this you have to also keep in mind this is happening like the late 70s or something. So inflation has been has eroded the value of the dollar since then, and healthcare inflation has been even higher. So back in 1978 or 81 or whenever it was that people were in the plan, that looked like a somewhat higher deductible than it does now. Then there was a even less generous plan, which basically had 25 to 50% coinsurance up to an income-based limit, which ranged from 5 to 15% of family income. So now what you're facing is basically when you go to the doctor, you're going to have to pay basically either 25 or 50% of the bill until you hit a certain level of total payment. So what this is doing is it's basically combining co-payments with the deductible. So 25, especially 50% coinsurance is actually quite high. That basically means you're only getting like 50% insurance up until you meet this limit. So the limit is based on income limits. So I guess realistically, if you're talking today, if you had a family income of like $60,000, then maybe you have like a 10% income limit. So in today's terms, it would basically be like a case where say you have to pay half your doctor's bill up until the point at which your family has spent $6,000 on healthcare in that year, and then after that, it would be 100% covered by your health insurance plan. So this is like substantially less generous than that individual deductible one, even though for the first $150 you're paying like 100% coinsurance essentially on the individual deductible one. And then the last one is just it's least generous, just a catastrophic plan. So basically, you have to pay all the costs up to an income-based limit. So you can think of it as like being this one with like a 100% coinsurance rate. So you'll have to pay, if you had $60,000 income and say it was the limit was at 10% of your income, then you'd have to pay $6,000 of healthcare costs until your insurance plan kicked in. Let's see. So the last year, are you paying the same amount then? So in the catastrophic case, you are. And so let's say you get hit with like you get in like a car accident, you go to the hospital, and you have a $80,000 bill after that, right? So in both of those cases, if your family income were say $60,000, then you would pay $6,000. But the difference is that in the first case, if you're just talking about sort of less catastrophic outcomes, where it's like, well, I had to do like a few doctor's visits during this year that would have cost $500, then with the catastrophic plan, you have to pay the entire 500 because you haven't hit the $6,000 limit yet. Whereas in this one, you'd only pay either 25 or 50% of the 500. So you're only paying like 125 or 250 in those cases. Those sorts of cases. Yeah.
So is the last two like distinguishable when we're actually doing the?
You mean do you see different results for?
Or like I guess like is the expenses much higher than your like 10% lower income? So that like the last two actually is pretty much the same. You're paying like the same amount.
Are you saying from the family's perspective or from the? So yeah, I think the last. Sorry, are you saying comparing this one with this one, or yeah? So I think the last one, it is the case that often families are paying more under this because the only way that these two become equivalent again is if you get up to like $12,000 of healthcare costs in a given year, which like most years you're not going to do that. You might end up averaging that, but
That, like, like births and all that. Like, but that does cost a lot of money, right?
yeah. So if you gave like childbirth in a year, then yeah, you would hit the like $12,000 total spending limit. Well, it'd be $6,000 total spending, which at a 50% coinsurance rate means you have to have $12,000 healthcare expenditures before you hit that. So in a year like that, you would like these two plans would effectively be the same. But like most families aren't giving birth every year. So and like in just in general, it's like there's a reason why like health insurance is insurance because so my premium, which I don't pay, but which Berkeley pays, is probably something like I don't know. I'm gonna guess it comes out to somewhere between like $6,000 to $10,000 per year, and that's probably not so far off from like it's probably actuarially not super unfair. Like I don't know. I'm still like probably a below average risk person because I'm not that old and like I don't have a history of health issues and stuff. But like for an overall average risk person, that's probably not unreasonable. But that's not to say that they expect to be spending like $8,000 per year. It's like you expect in most years to be spending like a few $100s, and then in 1 year to be spending like $150,000 or something like that. So in most years, I would say families are going to have to pay significantly less under that plan than under the last plan. So when they ran this experiment for several years and then looked at the results, what they found is that indeed, so as you might expect, the high co-insurance, the high deductible plans, those less generous plans, did significantly reduce healthcare expenditures. So people in those last two plans basically had 30% fewer doctor's visits, 20% fewer hospitalizations, and 25 to 30% lower total expenditures than people in the free care plan. And furthermore, all of these reductions were along the quantity margin rather than the price margin. So you could think of, well, there's two ways you could save money. One is you could go to the doctor less often, and the other is you could find some like cheap doctor who's maybe not very good or something and go to that doctor instead. But what they seem to be finding was that it was also along the quantity dimension of just going to the doctor less often rather than finding cheaper providers. And honestly, it's not even, I don't know how you go about finding a cheaper provider other than just knowing that like if you have Kaiser say that that's a cheaper plan than having some sort of, I don't know, Blue Cross PPO or something like that. But it's not like doctors really post their prices on their doors for people who are just going and sort of paying by visit or anything like that. Okay, so their expenditures went down, which you might expect now that there's more cost sharing. But the question then is what happened to their health? And so the really interesting part is that the reduced healthcare spending seemingly had little or no impact on any of the health outcomes. So that sort of is the first suggestive piece of evidence that on the margin, the extra spending on healthcare isn't actually having a big impact on health outcomes. So they had a bunch of measures of physical health, not just things about like, not just clinical measurements, but actually sort of functional measurements like can you walk upstairs and how limited are you in daily life and so forth. So they had physical health and role functioning. They had mental health measures, measures of things like social contacts, general health ratings, so sort of self-reported, how healthy you are, whether or not you smoke, what your weight was, cholesterol, blood pressure, vision, so more sort of clinical measurement type things. Then a mortality risk index, which actually kind of combined a lot of these things together and try to estimate or predict what your overall mortality risk was based on these various health measures.
What was the age of the participants?
That's a very good question. So I think they were probably like middle-aged to above, but I have to go back and double check. I mean, they're definitely not like among people your age, you wouldn't expect to find any effect at all really because you're all going to be healthy regardless of whether or not you have health insurance for the most part. 4 years later, so what they did find effects for, one was they did find a statistically significant effect with a p-value of less than 0.001, so it's just less than 1 in 1,000 chance, 1 in 1,000 probability of finding it just due to chance, is better corrected vision. So this isn't super interesting, right? This is basically saying like, look, if you give people a 100% subsidy on like buying glasses and contacts and stuff, then they'll make sure they get them updated regularly and have better corrected vision. To be honest now, I mean, these days like healthcare plans don't even cover that. That's you get like separate vision insurance through your employer, so it benefits, not like insurance for the most part. Then the other thing that they did seem to find some effect where it's not that significant, so it's below the 5% level, but it's like 3%, it's not that far from 5%, was slightly lower diastolic blood pressure. So one of the two, you have systolic and diastolic measures for blood pressure. So one of the two measures did seem to be a little bit better for the people who were on the free healthcare plan, where they're getting all the healthcare that they could possibly want. But that was it. There were no other significant differences. In the mortality risk indices for people on these different plans, like for say the free care plan versus the very expensive plan versus the middle of the road plan, they were all pretty close. So on average, they range from basically 0.98 to 1.03. So like 1.0 would be the baseline level, and 0.98 would say you had a 2% lower risk of mortality, and 1.03 would say you had 3% higher risk of mortality. So those all seem pretty close. Now, on the other hand, I think it is important to note that mortality is a very severe outcome, and it's one that even from a BSL level, so people say, well, you can't sign any price, but even if you want to sign a price, it's still going to be very high. So we talked about like BSLs in the range of $5 or $6 million. So even like a 2% change in mortality risk, when you multiply that by $5 million, is not a trivial dollar amount, right? So I think it's like $100,000. I did the math, right? So that you want to interpret with some caution. On the one hand, there isn't any statistically significant change in the mortality risk index. On the other hand, you would think that the experiment might sort of be underpowered, not really have enough of a sample size to potentially pick up some changes in risk that would still be large in dollar terms simply because the VSL itself is so large. Okay, so I'm going to end there today, and then on Wednesday we'll talk about essentially so the other margin, which is whether or not you can have any health insurance at all. So right now we're talking about like how generous health insurance you have, but the other margin in which you could be covered is not having any health insurance at all. And when we talk about that margin, which we call the excess margin, it does seem like there is a relationship between health insurance and overall health.